I want to say like a month or two ago, I can't exactly remember. I showed off a few of the Zunes I got from my local Free Geek. And on top of that, I showed off one of the Zunes I got back up and running again. This is that Zune, I believe. With that said, one thing you know right out of the gate is I'm now able to hold the thing and it looks like a proper Zune. Though if I turn it over, you can see I have modified it slightly so I can actually have a battery on it and whatnot. Would I like the battery to be internal? Yes. But unfortunately, the third-party batteries that you can get for this thing, they're kind of hit and miss. So I'm just better off just soldering the wiring to the original battery's BMS and then just soldering the battery to that. So that way I can still have a supposedly a good battery. This is a third-party battery for a pair of Sony headphones, but this is 1,800 milliwatts compared to the original battery in this thing, which was I believe like 1,200 or 1,500. So this one's slightly higher capacity than the original battery, which also means when I go to plug this thing in to charge, it doesn't overcharge the battery, which was the one thing I was concerned about when I was originally doing the Franken Zoom. Was the original battery I was using was like a 200, maybe a 400 milliwatt hour battery. So if I went to plug that thing in for too long, it would actually blow up the battery and become an actual fire hazard. So I have now resolved the charging issues. Now, yes, it's a little bit more thicker than it originally was, but I have fully revived this Zune and I can use it. And the reason why I'm okay with it on this guy is because, well, I'm not really going to be taking this thing around town and whatnot to use. This is more my at-home Zune. If I was going to roam around my town and whatnot, I'll be using the mini Zune right here. But obviously, I need to power this guy up also. So I already did the preliminary of removing its dead battery while still maintaining the original PC BMS right here. And I was just waiting for me to get around the time to buy a battery for this so I can get this one up and running. Now, with that said, here is that original battery. It's a generic from old China. It's an 820 milliwatt. I believe this one's like a 450, like the original battery in here is like a 750 something milliwatt hour. So just like the battery on this one's slightly more higher capacity, which means I can also plug this one in, or I can plug this Zune in with this battery and not have to worry about this one being overcharged. Now, obviously, this one does have a BMS installed on it also, so it would stop it from overcharging anyways. But I prefer to have a battery slightly higher capacity than the original one, again, so it doesn't overcharge, because, again, the method I'm doing is completely different than just buying a third party and then just resoldering everything to the board and whatnot. So with that said, I'm going to try and show the process of what I'm going to be doing. I don't know how I'll be able to show it off because I'm not a full technical YouTuber and I don't have the good stuff to really show off what needs to be done, but I can at the very least explain what I'm doing. So what I'm going to be doing right out of the gate is, even though this battery here does in fact fit within the well of the original, it's actually too thick. Now, yes, it's over on top of the BMS, but again, this battery is just unfortunately too thick to fit. So if I could actually get a lithium battery that's within the same capacity range, but be just slightly thinner or just a little bit more thinner, heck, just be about basically this exact same size, I could have it fully internal, have it fully enclosed up without having this big old backpack and whatnot. But also, another reason why I do like having the battery be external is because, well, let's be quite honest here, lithium batteries have a finite life. These will eventually fail, and when they fail, they can fail catastrophically. So when they fail, usually they're internal, which means they'll push up on the screen and damage the screen. So if this battery, when it eventually fails, it'll expand. I mean, that will also expand also. But instead of expanding, damaging the actual thing itself, it'll just expand, and I'll be able to notice, oh, the battery's expanding. I need to pop the back cover off. I gotta desolder it and get a replacement. Compared to, well, risking a complete destruction of the screen, and since these Zunes are not being made anymore, and as far as I know, there's no third-party recreation for screens for this thing, it's not a good thing to have the screens just die on this. Again, I did damage the screen on this one, but I have a few more of these laying around the room, so I'm not too concerned. Though with the minis, I'm going to be very cautious on this one because this is probably like my third mini I've ever owned, and I really don't want to destroy this. So with that said, I'm going to get everything situated in a way to where I can kind of explain what I'm doing and come back. Alright, so here is the original Zune's BMS. Reason why I kept it intact is because, of course, it's a hodgepodge of wires and it needs all those wires to function. So what I did is I removed the original metal strips for the battery that was originally on here that I removed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attach some thin gauge wiring to the contacts here. As you can also see, we got a negative and a positive right there, so I know exactly which wire to go. And the reason why I'm going to be using thin gauge, I'm going to be using this thin gauge right here, is because I need to be able to route this wiring between here and then have it go out to there and have it come out of this little guy right here. That way so I can solder on the wiring to the new replacement battery I'm going to be using. So I'm going to get this all situated off camera and I will come back. Alright, got the BMS all set up. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it in some tape so I don't have anything short on here and whatnot. Now, yes, I do have this covered in some clear tape, but it's usually a good idea to cover something up like this anyway so it doesn't short. And for that, I'm just going to use standard old duct tape. Reason being, it works just fine. Alright, and now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep this battery and I'm going to test everything before I close it up. Reason being because I want to make sure that all this work I just did isn't just going to be wasted, because the last thing I want to do is put this thing together and find out that I somehow cooked the BMS by accident. I have done that before. I've done it at least 2 times with this guy when I was trying to get it up and running. So I'm very lucky. Third time was a try and I actually salvaged it and it works. So hopefully I don't do that with this one. I was being very careful with it, so it should work, but you never know. Alright, got the battery soldered up. I didn't get any magic smoke, so I think we are good to go. So next thing to do is plug the Zune into a USB port of one of my computers to get it to boot up. And there it is booting up. Alright, it looks like it does recognize something. So next thing to do is to see what happens when I unplug it. It does recognize the battery and it is apparently charging. So let's see what the battery life is at. Well, it says the battery is low. So since these are lithium batteries, I know what they generally are supposed to run at. So if it's around like a 3.6 volts or 3.60, then it is low. These things run at about 420. Not weed joke, because weed is for losers. But the average voltage for this thing is around 420. So I'm going to get a voltmeter, go and see what it reads at, and then come back. Alright, I tested it. The voltage is at 380. So yes, the battery is low, which means it is properly reading the battery and is going to hopefully properly charge it up. So the next step for me to do is actually clean this up so I can actually use it. So I'm going to get that all done and come back yet again. Alright, everything's done and buttoned up, at least in the front. It looks like just a normal Zune. Of course, if you look out on the side or in the back, you can see it has a nice little backpack. It's not exactly centered, but whatever. So either way, I've now revived 2 Zunes. So now I need to get this one fully charged and use it for a little while because, well, I do like these. Again, I like these Zunes. There's a reason why I put time and effort into reviving both of them. I like to revive the other ones I got, but I'll do that some other time. I just wanted to revive the little mini because out of all the Zunes I got, I actually want to be using the mini more than the big one because, well, the mini is a flash one and this one's a hard drive, and, well, as you all know, hard drives will eventually fail. I mean, of course, flash will also fail, but this one's going to have a little bit more longer life than this one right here. So with that said, I'll charge this guy up and use it for a little while, I guess. Alright, it's been about a couple days since I initially started this video. I let the mini here fully die out where it wouldn't even turn on no matter what I did. And it's been now sitting for about 12 hours or so, and the battery's still showing full. So my theory of needing to let the battery fully die and then properly fully charge it back up again seems to be holding water. And even still, the thing still does die relatively soon-ish. It still lasts like maybe 12 hours or something like that. And that's more than enough. Obviously, I want it to last a lot more longer, but gotta make do with what I got. Either way, I've now fully revived 2 Zunes, and I'm very happy with the outcome. Would I have liked to have been able to put this battery internal? Yes, obviously, but again, like I mentioned earlier, since the third-party batteries for Zunes are kind of hit and miss, I'll rather have a battery on the back, that way so whenever this battery does die, and it will eventually die and need to be replaced, I can easily pull it off, desolder it, and then throw it away, or properly recycle it over at my local Free Geek, and then get a replacement battery and just put it back where this one used to be. That way so I can just keep this thing going basically indefinite. So with that said, I think that's more or less done for the video. I've now revived 2 Zunes.